Brilliance Audio.
W.E.B. Griffin, The Devil's Weapons by Peter Kirsanow. Performed by Stefan Rudnicki. Chapter 1. It was the peculiar smell that he remembered most, not the hideous scenes, the horrific sounds, or the paralyzing cold, not the terrified faces, or even the bodies mangled beyond recognition. It was the smell. Utterly unlike anything he'd experienced in his nearly 41 years on Earth. It was almost a tactile sensation, damp and suffocating, the product of blood and urine and intestines, rotting flesh and pulverized organs. It seemed to have lined his nostrils, penetrated his skin. As he trod carefully through the woods, trying to orient himself while remaining alert for patrols, he recited the names of his 4 contacts and the 3 passwords assigned for each. The passwords had been given to him just once, hurriedly and in a hushed tone. He hoped he'd heard correctly. If he hadn't, he'd be dead within seconds of uttering the error. There was little risk of his forgetting the names and passwords, no matter how tense the circumstances. Dr. Sebastian Kapsky had a prodigious memory, capable of retaining and retrieving the most complex equations ever generated by the human brain. Equations that could affect or alter history. Memory wasn't the issue. Rather, it was whether what his brain retrieved when he spoke to the contacts was actually what was spoken to him by his seatmate, Bronislaw Haller. Katyn, Soviet Union. 1430 hours. 23 April 1940. Bronislaw Haller was a jeweler from Białystok. He and Kapsky had been rounded up by Red Army soldiers within days of the Soviet invasion of Poland, ostensibly for administrative processing. At least that's what they'd gleaned from the statements from the praporshchiks taking their names before herding them onto transports. A lumbering open-bed lorry transferred them to the Ostashkov camp in Katyn Forest, where they would be funneled into concrete bunkers along with thousands of other men, mainly soldiers and policemen, but also a fair number of municipal officials, clergy, and academics. From the moment they clambered aboard the lorry and sat next to each other, Haller had been anxious. More than anxious, his face was covered with a look that ranged between apprehension and dread. Within seconds of sitting next to Kapsky, Haller leaned near and whispered, "Find your opportunity, friend, and run. Don't hesitate. You'll only get one chance. Run, and run fast." Kapsky was startled. None of the detainees had spoken a word since they'd been marched toward the transports. Haller recognized the indecision on Kapsky's face. "Listen to me, friend. This isn't going to be random questioning, temporary detainment." Haller nodded toward 2 Russians dressed in civilian clothes, standing apart from the Red Army soldiers. "That is NKVD. They do not send NKVD to verify names and addresses. They send NKVD for one thing: to kill." Kapsky glanced toward the 2 civilians. Each wore dismissive, contemptuous expressions as they surveyed the Poles arrayed on the lorries. It was as if they were looking at something that would soon be irrelevant, like spoiled food being hauled to a dumpster. Kapsky leaned toward Haller. "Run where?" "Anywhere. Just run. You'll know where to go later, but you must go." Kapsky looked back at the NKVD officers, then leaned closer to Haller. "You lead. I'll follow." A sardonic look came over Haller's face. "Obviously you were not paying attention when I came aboard." He moved his long coat aside and gestured toward his legs. They were encased in a lattice-work of metal braces. "I've not run since I was 18 years old." He shook his head. "I have no chance. But you may have one, and I can help." A Soviet soldier closed the lorry's tailgate. One of the NKVD officers motioned for the driver to drive. As he waved his arm, the seams of his overcoat parted, revealing a Tokarev semi-automatic. The lorry lurched forward.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?